Now, just 2 days ago, on the 1st of October, the world observed the International Day for Older Persons to recognize the vital contributions of older persons to society and to raise awareness about the challenges they face. Now, this year's theme, fulfilling the promises of the Universal Declaration on Human Rights for Older Persons across generations. This underscores the importance of upholding the fundamental rights of older individuals and ensuring that these rights are passed down through the generations. In 1948, the United Nations adopted the Universal Declaration of Human Rights, a landmark document that proclaims the inalienable rights to which every person, regardless of age, is entitled. These rights include the right to life, liberty and security of a person, freedom from discrimination, the right to work and education, and the right to participate in the cultural, social, and political life of their country. However, older persons have often faced systemic challenges in accessing and enjoying these rights fully. Ageism, discrimination based on age, remains a prevalent issue. Older individuals frequently encounter barriers in healthcare, employment, and participation in decision-making processes. And so we want to find out what gaps exist in policy and what can be done to ensure that older persons live in dignity. Just to introduce my panelists this morning once again, Lucy Moria, who's the CEO and founder of the Kenya Pro-Aging Organization and Lucy Moria Network. Thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you.
We also do have Monica Kinyanjui, who's the founder of Women for Dementia Africa. Very good morning as well. Good to see you. And Carol Agengo, who's a Global Initiatives Lead and Regional Representative, HelpAge International. Good morning. Good to see you.
Nice to be
All right. And just looking at the proportion of older persons in the country, and of course this is going by the 2019 National Census Report, we are estimated about 6% of the total population. I was going to get the 2022 one, but we're about 2.7 older persons in terms of population against a population of, what was it at that point in 2019, 47.5. But you can correct me with the correct figures once I get that. But, you know, the theme, like I said, for the day as we mark for older persons is, you know, across generations. And of course, this highlights the interconnectivity of, you know, human rights and the responsibility of the younger generation to the older persons. Do you think we've been able to uphold this? You know, on paper it looks quite wonderful, but is this the reality? Let me begin with you, Carol.
Thank you for giving us an opportunity to speak to this very important issue. I think one of the things, when you talked about the statistics, 2 million out of 47 million, 2 million and something out of 47 million may seem very, very insignificant. But I think we need to look at the issues of the numbers of older people in proportion to the older population from a futuristic perspective, if I may, because we're living in an aging world. And WHO statistics tell us that 1 in 6 people will be an older person in 2050. That is not far away. It's the foreseeable future. So all the people in this room will be older persons by then. That's the reality. And I think when we look at younger people, we have to bring them along because they will be older people. They're older people in waiting. And so it's in their best interest to take care of the issues of older people so that they prepare their future as well. But that said then, are we addressing the issues of older people? I think we're not. If you look at the underlying issues that underpin the problems that older people face, a lot of them are couched in culture, in tradition, the lack of respect of the rights of older people. Your rights are respected up to a certain age. There's this cliche, tunaheshimu wazee, but in reality, and we'll speak a little bit about that, we don't really respect them because we've seen that the underlying issues then become more foundational in, and you spoke about systemic challenges. We see poverty, we see ageism, we see the suppression of the voice and agency of older people. You're pushed aside every time you try to lift your voice, you're pushed aside or it's suppressed. And we also see this playing out in isolation of older people, violence, abuse, and neglect, the poor health indicators for older people, lack of access to medical care, mobility issues, and there are many, many ways in which those foundational issues play out. And so we need to address the manifestations of those problems, but I think more importantly, we need to go down to the roots. Why is there violence, abuse, and neglect of older people, for example? Yeah, can we change our mind? Can we change our social norms? Can we change the laws and then not only have new laws or effective laws, but implement those laws?
Right.
So maybe I'll pause for a moment.
All right. Yeah. And Monica, let me hear from you. I mean, when you're looking at the issues that specifically older persons face, what would you highlight as some of the biggest challenges that, you know, in reality they do face?
Oh yes, they do face a lot tremendous challenges. I representing an older group who are living with dementia. Those now face double challenges because of discrimination. First of all, when it's actually said that it's a disease for the elderly. Already that is a discrimination, because dementia is not a disease for the elderly. You can't even get people in 30s getting dementia. So because they have already discriminated them by telling them it's an aging disease. It's an aging disease. Therefore, they're not given the care, even at the family level. They're not, the medics, the health facility don't give them the care they require. And it's just a difficult people who are living in this situation. Discrimination starts for those particular segment I care for and voice them.
All right.
Yeah.
Okay. And Lucy, you know, let's begin also from that perspective of the challenges that still older persons. We have to understand these particular challenges so that we can look at the issues to be able to address. From where you sit, from the organization that you serve, Kenya Pro Aging Organization, you work with older people, you talk to older people every single day. What are these things they speak to you about?
Thank you, Zainabu. Challenges are quite many. We have the challenge of ageism, loss of sense of purpose from our older persons. They have financial insecurity. They have difficulties with the tasks that that need to mobility.
Okay.
They are finding right caregivers is another huge thing. Access to health care, not just health care, quality health care. Loneliness, elderly abuse, like my colleague just said, are of course the policy frameworks. Your question there is, are policies failing senior citizens? I would say yes, especially in Kenya. I know my colleague represents like a larger group, but in Kenya, yes. The only place that in Kenya we do have in law mentioning of the older persons is very scanty. That is only in the Constitution, Article 57, that stipulates the responsibility of the family and the state to give reasonable care. It's not, you know, Constitution does not elaborate. So whatever reasonable care is, it's something that we have to yet find out. And I think the Constitution, these Constitution provisions, it's what encouraged the adoption of the National Social Protection Policy in May 2012, which aims to define mechanisms for improvement of the socio-economic status of the poorest and most vulnerable. And that's why they came up with the Inua Jamii project. Other than that, no other policies. We have struggled, all of us, the people in this space. We needed to have an act of parliament, which we have not yet had, which was drafted back in 2021, is still hanging out there. And so there's nothing actually to guide on what should be done for the elderly. We know it's, as we say, the responsibility of the family. That's just vague. Family, most people here in Africa or in Kenya, they think family is your children. And the gap is there. There is huge gap because the family setups that used to be there, they are not there anymore. people are moved to towns. All of us today, we are in Nairobi, where our parents. There are no more villages. So those structures are not there anymore when the family used to entirely take care of them. But then, which is the other option, is the government. What is our government then doing on that? The government has only established one home for those who are abused, those who are homeless, those who have no one to take care of. That is the one in Kirinyaga. And actually it functions, it's not even known. We don't even know how many people are there. And other homes that are there, they are individual and maybe
Private
a few
owned.
from the church. Yeah.
All right.
Yes.
So you feel like there's suddenly a huge gap there that exists? in terms
Huge.
of-
That is actually our major problems.
All
And
right.
of course, what the challenges they are facing. Of course, illnesses, I'm not repeating what they said. Loneliness is huge.
Correct.
Abuse is huge.
And we'll come
but
back
the
to
most
that.
huge is the policy frameworks.
Okay.
Yes.
And I mean, Carol, Lucy brings in quite an interesting perspective there. When you talk about, you know, our family setup has changed. In the African setup, essentially when parents grow older, they're taken in, you know, by the children or extended family. But things are changing with urbanization. People move out, and then you find, you know, the older persons live alone, and then they end up, you know, with dejection and all those things that come with it. So then we've seen then the rise of care homes and, you know, caregivers, and so, you know, some are taken to those, you know, it's sort of socially acceptable at this point. But that doesn't necessarily address the things that they still face. How does that change in terms of our living lifestyle affected how older persons live with, you know, dignity and enjoy the rights that they are supposed to enjoy?
I think Lucy has mentioned many things which I agree with absolutely. And the issue of the responsibility of the state, we cannot move away from that. As it's framed in the Constitution, it's very weak. However, there is opportunity to strengthen it through a robust legal framework, and that is lacking. And I'll come to the issue of the homes, but those homes have to be grounded upon a certain framework. So if we do not have a legal framework that adequately covers the rights of older people, no matter how many homes we have, we're not going to deal with this social problem. Law comes in to regulate the social norms, because without law, in any, even away from the older people, if we don't have a law, traffic laws, for example, then we would have chaos every day on our roads. So we have laws to regulate human behavior. So human behavior currently is showing us that we're not caring for our older people. So what should we do? If you look at from 1948, when the Universal Declaration, which is like the Constitution of Human Rights, when it was adopted, to now, the social changes around the world have been major. There are certain things that were acceptable or were done and accepted by society back then that are no longer acceptable because times have changed. So why are we not changing our views about older people? Lucy mentioned that, yes, we think that our children will take care of us. I love my children, but I'll see on national TV, I have no guarantee that they'll take care of me. And so it is important, and I don't expect them to. So it is important that I'm given the ability so that when I grow older, I'm able to take care of myself without burdening my children, because society has changed. But where then is the gap? The legal framework is one thing. We have a national policy on older people and the policy on social protection that Lucy mentioned, but that's where it stops. Kenya has ratified the AU protocol on the rights of older people. That's amazing, but Kenya must now use its position in the region to rally support from other nations so that they ratify that protocol so that it can enter into force. We're at 11 ratifications, we need 4 more for it to enter into force. And then we must implement the standards. We must bring down those standards back home. Only then will we be able to regulate some of the issues, such as the care homes, the rights, the gaps that we talked about, the problems. We recently had the case in Kisii where older women were banned. That was in 2021. If today you lynched, I came in and lynched you, I'd be in jail. And the society would gang up and make sure that I'm prosecuted. Why is it okay for an older woman to be prosecuted when we have a criminal law, penal code, that is actually very, very strong? So that shows us that there's a gap. We must then look at laws and policies that look at the specific issues of older people. So in addition to that, at the global level, we need a convention on the rights of older people. That hasn't yet been ratified, because that then brings responsibility. That hasn't been adopted. There's no convention yet. We need a convention, ratify it, and bring those standards back home, because that way we can hold governments accountable. But those laws must have budgets that allow for their implementation, administrative arrangements that allow for the implementation, and society must also be re-socialized around the issues of older people, that an older person has a right the same way any other person has, as prescribed in the Universal Declaration, from which all these other instruments flow. So in short, I'm saying that the issues that we're facing, there is no one to hold the wrongdoers accountable adequately.
Right.
So we need laws and policies that relate to older people specifically, because the conditions, the situations, the circumstances of older people are very different.
Indeed.
Yeah.
All right. And I mean, yeah, you mentioned something, Monica. We've had some cases of, like in some parts of the country, older people accused of witchcraft because of age and gender stereotypes. And, you know, others are forced out of their homes. They're being murdered because, you know, you're old. So if you're old, suddenly you're practicing witchcraft. And then this is acceptable in some sense by society, which is quite sad.
Indeed, it's sad. And what will you if you have dementia? And showing, and many of the times dementia symptoms have behavioral change. And behavioral change, you don't behave like the way you were behaving 5 years ago. So society will see, they will try and explain you by saying you are a witch or you're a wizard. And most likely, and that way they'll discriminate you based on that. And they will annihilate you. They'll even family members can even abandon you. And because maybe sometimes you may be having property, the society will want another property because they can explain that you're a witchcraft and you are a witch, and therefore they will come for you and lynch you like they've lynched like we find in Kilifi and Kwale and the coastal regions, and what we found in Muranga this year, and Kisii.
So that's a double tragedy. So I'm
Yes.
imagining dementia. When you're talking about dementia, just give us an idea. Dementia, from a medical perspective, is, you know, forgetfulness, I believe.
That
if
is
I'm
one
not
of the
wrong.
symptoms. I'm not a medic, I'm a social worker,
Right.
anthropologist.
Actually, dementia is not what you're saying, those are symptoms.
Okay.
Dementia is the degeneration of the brain. And as you age, and not necessarily whatever age is, even from age 30, your brain can start changing.
Right.
But a lot of times it's in the aging, the more older people. So the brain changes, goes down, you start forgetting, you start not, you know, even remembering your family members, you start wondering when it is worse. You don't even know anything at the end of the day. Yes.
So that becomes double tragedy. Then it
is
means you
double
cannot be able to
tragedy.
even protect yourself in case of, you know, situations that arise where you've been accused of something. You know, you're suffering dementia, and there's nothing you can do about it.
You don't even know, even when you're abused, even sexually, physically, you don't even remember. And it becomes a triple tragedy when you have dementia, you're an older person, and who has a disability.
So it's unfortunate. You talk about sexual abuse. This is something that older persons, especially women, older women face as well.
Yeah.
Yes,
Yes.
we've had several cases, We had a case in Kiambu somewhere, and the older lady was living by herself, especially now the question of living alone and by yourself. And it is from younger people. And that's why our regional coordinator talked about including bringing the young people on board to understand, you know, it is wrong to have a law that can really punish them. What do you think? What kind of law really do you think can punish such a person? You are an older person, 85 years old, and you have multiple rapes from young people, and then she started smelling, and the neighbors realized there's an awful smell from her. And you know, she's even afraid to report, because if she reports, they threat that we'll kill you. You're by yourself. So the lady was taken to the hospital by a well-wisher, and it was realized she had already contacted HIV/AIDS at 85, HIV/AIDS, lonely, and old.
Wow.
Yes, those things are there. And not only women, men also are sodomized. And even from very exclusive families where you live caregivers, or you have like houseboys, you leave them with your dad, and you think it's very safe because it's another man. These cases, we have seen them. And you are there in Nairobi or in the US or wherever, and because you're sending money to your parents, that's why I'm saying always, it's not about the money. It's about the presence. It's about the caring. It's about the checking on them. These people, they don't even need that money much. So you send the caregiver money, and they know the older person and maybe has dementia. They send them money. They take it. They rape them. They sodomize them. And you'll never know, because you as a family member or a child, you're in a hurry. And you say, I'm going to see my parents over the weekend. You just go like, just on a tour. You have no time to really understand the changes that your parents have. And that's why we're saying that there's also the question of trained caregivers, those people who can identify changes. You don't have to be a real nurse for that, but at least there's basic trainings, and that's what my organization actually is also doing. You train them. If someone is changing, you may not be having dementia today, but things start changing. You start neglecting yourself. There's also self-neglect. You start not eating. You start just having some attitude. And because you don't understand these basic signs and symptoms, you think, you know what, she's rude, she's that. And then now the question of abusing them physically comes in.
Yeah.
Yes. The case we saw in Lemuru,
Right.
the one which was highlighted by
the
BBC.
media, right.
Actually, I would say it is the ignorance of even the caregivers, because there is no, most of them are just older person, ladies who are just volunteering to do that. They have no idea of what really care is, who is a caregiver.
So the
And
training is essential.
very necessary. We need that, and as we are saying, we are talking about the legal frameworks and the policy frameworks. All those things should be included, because even this caregiver also needs a law to protect them. They can also be attacked. Also, the patient needs something to protect them.
Right.
The doctor who attends to them, physician or physical therapist, all these need protection. How? Like the regional coordinator said, it's not just saying by mouth. We need a written law. Sometimes we have a lot of laws that are not implemented. But at least when it is there, you can hold someone accountable.
Right.
Even the case of Dogoto, just a general case, because which laws in Kenya really guide the homes in Kenya? None. It's just a bunch of Christian women who sat down and said, you know, our older people are suffering. We can take care of them. So they think care is just giving food. Care is more than food. Care is more than money.
All right.
Yes.
And I mean, Karen, I agree with that. I mean, guidelines in terms of even how these organizations care for people, and even, you know, the people who give care at home as well need some sort of skill and some training to be able to understand the specific challenges. Like, for example, the issue of dementia. You must have a bit of, you know, understanding, a bit of, you know, that knowledge of really how to go about handling an older person, specifically when they're actually, you know, facing other, let's say, for example, medical challenges as well. That's important.
Yes, that is important, and that will not happen if we do not train the caregivers, but within what framework are we training them? There has to be a curriculum, or there has to be a course, there has to be something. But what would drive the push for that course, the need for it? I think there's a total neglect or refusal to accept that this is an issue.
Correct.
And so long as we put this to the periphery, then we're not going to do anything about it. So like I said, even with the policies that we have, we could do something as we wait for the law, but we've got no
we need
budgetary, yes, budgetary arrangements, for example. Where's the money that will then, because for there to be training, there has to be some budget.
Yeah.
But the budget cannot happen. The laws don't happen in a vacuum. They happen in society. But in addition to having the budgets, the administrative arrangements, we also have to change the psyche of the people. Because if I take an older person as a person who is a problem, a bother to society, no matter how much I am trained, I'm not going to take care of them.
Yeah.
So we have to change our psyche as a society, because no, we cannot change the law. It's not going to take us where we want to go, even when we change it, unless we are very clear in our minds that this is something that is good for us.
Do you feel like we are oblivious of, and even, you know, from the policy makers up to the, you know, individuals, even the young people in the society, are we oblivious of the reality that at some point we're going to be in that age bracket where we will need these laws, we will need this structure in place to be able to enjoy those rights when we reach that space?
Yeah, that's true, and that's why I said older people, including all the younger people, including all the younger people in the room here, are going to grow old. Right now, young people think that they're getting a raw deal because they've been told, oh, you're the leaders of tomorrow, all the things that young people are complaining about. Now, take a moment and imagine this. The raw deal you're having today, imagine having the raw deal 20 years on, when you have half the strength, when you have double the problems. You've got physical problems, you've got mental problems. When you've got half the resources, because we talked about poverty being an issue earlier on, when you've got half the access to all the things that you need, the health, etc., and more importantly, when you've got half or no access to technology changes, and so the technology, Twitter will be something different. It's already X. It could be Y in 2050, and you won't have the wherewithal to deal with it as an older person. So the problems that younger people are facing today will almost double or triple unless, as a society, we collectively deal with the structures that then enable some of the issues that we've talked about and Lucy has so ably articulated. Unless we identify those issues, go to the root of them, deal with those issues, we're going to continue having this problem. Lucy spoke about violence and abuse. There's the issue of property. You work very hard. Young people, you're working very hard. And then when you're older, someone will take away the property from you. We've got cases of children killing their parents to take away the property or completely pushing them to the periphery, in addition to all the examples of violence and abuse we've seen. So the problems are not ending. So we need to address the root causes, the structures, the systems that enable older people to be pushed to the periphery. Let's address them so that older people come back to the center as deserving members of the society, who deserve to be respected, whose rights deserve to be respected as well.
And I mean, Monica, correct, they do deserve to be respected. Let me talk about the issue of financial stability for older persons as well. When you're looking at the fact that there was a story I was listening to earlier on, and she was an 85-year-old woman who said, look, I worked all my life in private sector. I earned good money, and I had some money in terms of retirement, and but all that money that I used to educate my children. She had 2 sons and a daughter. So unfortunately enough, all her children died. So by the time she was reaching 85, she had nowhere to go. She had no one to turn to. And, you know, people would ask her, but you worked all your life. Where's your savings? Where's your money? But no, I used all my money on my children. Unfortunately, the children that I anticipated would help me and take care of me when they grew up are no longer there. They've all died. You get? Yeah. Then comes the issue of course, trying to try and fit into, or just trying to be able to access perhaps aid that comes from the government. There's this cash transfer that, you know, we've heard of, like, for example, early in the year, we know that the government said they're going to add about 500 more elderly people or older persons into a cash transfer program, and those who've attained the age of 70 and above. I'm yet to get the true picture of that, if that actually did happen. But so the financial vulnerability that older persons face is another big issue.
Yes, it is. As Carol had said, that you may work hard all your life, accumulated all this, and when you're old, your children may they may not even die. They may end up just disinheriting you and putting you in the periphery. And yes, the government has come up with a Inua Jamii, as Lucy has said. I shared the last day of recruitment was the last week. I think towards the end of last week, the last day of the month, and they did. And I can recommend the government. They've done a fantastic job. There's been a big drive. The only thing that 70 and over, there are very few in that segment. We always, when we're in the field, we're always asking, can they just increase to 65? To 65-year-old, because these elderly people, remember, they are living in NCDs. They may not only be living with they'll be living with other chronic diseases like diabetes, which is very common, hypertensive, renal disease. All those cost a lot of money, which are not available. And even for those who are working in jobs where they're earning pension, that pension is not enough to care for this older person when she falls sick. And indeed, no matter what age, what social sector you are, we're always having harambes for our parents when they end up in hospitals. We're always doing funds drive to be able to pay their bill when they pass on, because they are very, very high because of the chronic diseases they have. Yes, they may have much, but when they are old, that much is little. And that much is negligible, because most of all, even the care for you, and I'll still come back to dementia, care for those who are living in dementia, even if they are a little trained, because of the kind of work that they have, they take. I know Lucy is a geriatric nurse here. She knows what it takes to care for one who's living in dementia, and it's a tall order. So those ones who come in, they are expensive. A friend of mine the other day was sharing that she's paying for a caregiver 40,000. You house them, you feed them, you're earning better than 40,000 you take home, because you don't have transport, you don't have anything that no expense, because you're being cared for. But you're doing a noble job. So they are not many families are able to afford this. And dementia being a family disease, one person may end up having to forgo their work, stay home, and care for this person. And because Women for Dementia, we work in the low-income area, where people earn their monies by going to do vibaruas or going to the factories just for daily wage. So they leave their loved one inside the house, locked in, and because they don't want them to wander, that is very common with people living in dementia. So such expenses are very, very, very high for a family. By the time you're done with caring for one who is elderly, your money has depleted.
Do you think that's why sometimes then you have children who move out of their homes, perhaps to go to other areas? If then Ushago decided, let me go to the capital city to look for a job, or just to stay away because of the financial burden that comes with taking care of the elderly, who also are affected by diseases like, for example, dementia.
Yes.
So that is a contribution.
That is a contribution for them wanting to leave their loved one, and because they can't cope up with the bills, they have remember they have their own children to take care of. They have children maybe going to school or university. They have their own expenses. Maybe some don't even have jobs. So the little they're having, they're not ready to share with this parent.
Yeah.
So they end up migrating to wherever they can or neglecting the parents. Yeah.
I mean, Lucy, yeah, I see you're sort of nodding your head and agreeing to that.
Yeah, of course I'm nodding. She has very good points, all of them. And I've realized during the course, like you had, I'm a geriatric nurse. I'm trained in the US and I've worked for many, many years.
Yes.
So our people here in Kenya especially, they lack information. Because of our culture, the setup, you know, they always believed it was automatic for the older persons to be taken care of by the family or the society. But they must understand that things have changed. There's nothing like societal care anymore.
Yeah.
There's nothing like family care. So we are trying to give a lot of information, a lot of awareness for them to realize and accept that it's a human right for the older person to be taken care of. They are also human. There are some cultures even in this country that do not even think it's important to take care of an older person after all your days are done. Like some pastoralist counties where when they move from one place to another, the older persons are left behind with people with disability. And no one even knows what happens. I've had someone from in my show who told me that. So, to the question of financial insecurity, it is there, it is huge, and I'm going to clarify something here about the Inua Jamii project.
All right.
The Inua Jamii project, for your information, it is not for the older persons. It is for all people who are vulnerable.
So there is
nothing specific about the older persons. It is for people with disability, living with a disability. It is for people, the children who are vulnerable, and then the older persons. And according to older persons, according to our government that came up with this project, the older person is 70 years and above. But the definition of an older person in Kenya and by UN, it is 60 years and above. So you wonder, between 60 and above, if you're already an older person, where will you be? You are getting nothing. And like the recruitment, you mentioned 500,000 older persons would be recruited. It's not older persons. It is people living with people who are vulnerable. Even one ward can produce 500,000 older people. Now, this registration ended last 2 days ago on the 30th of September. They are under a lot of challenges. The minister said the requirement for you to be recruited is to be 70 years of age and to have a Kenyan ID. A lot of them, I didn't even know we had an ID which used to expire in Kenya. It expired in 1989. If you had an ID, a Kenyan ID, that means you are a Kenyan.
Yeah.
If you had an ID that expired, that means your age was indicated. Why do you then turn this person back because the ID was expired? We had another huge challenge on that. That is to show that many people, many older persons were not registered. You live in a different county. Maybe all of us, we come from different counties. But now maybe you came to live in Nairobi when you already had your ID. So when you go for registration and you are an older person who settled maybe from age 18 in Nairobi or in Machakos or in Kisumu, someone has the guts to tell you that you are 70 years already, and that is what the minister said, the requirement is 70 years of age and you have a Kenyan ID. They did not say from a specific county. You are advised to go to your county where you got your ID from. I think that should change. I think if your ID expired, you are still Kenyan, and if you're over 70, you deserve that. I'm requesting the government, and this thing should not be given actually like a deadline. It should be a continuous. You age every day. People get to 70 every day, and also people are dying. Even those who are recruited since 2012. We don't know where is the accountability. How do you know who was replaced? So there's nothing like filling the gap of those people who have died. We need to know that. And people age become 70 every day. Are they replaced? That is why the law, again, back to the policies. So this is just a roadside show. Someone just say from age 70 we'll give you, and then it's not even consistent. The 2,000 you get in January, next time you get, it is June, it is when. So how is it help? I've sat with older persons. They ask me now, you, ma'am, you get your salaries, those who are working, so that you can plan for your life. So if this 2,000, I don't get it, it has no consistency. I don't know even when I'll get it next. I cannot plan. Maybe I've even taken a debt of food from somebody's shop. I will not be able to pay them. I need my medication every month. Then I need my money on time, just like anyone else. I remember when we had the conference, which was at Kenya School of Government. Our president said, from now on, it will never be late again. I'm yet to see. In the last 2 months, it was. Thank you, Your Excellency, that happened. And we ask you to continue doing that. Now life is changing. Like now, things are very, very hard. The people who are really getting affected more, it is them. 2,000 of which was suggested in 2012 is not the same 2,000 today. 2,000, we cannot even drink.
Is that the same amount that?
The same amount for the last almost over 10 years.
Almost 10 years.
It's over 10 years, and it's the same. And things, there is all this. There is an increase of taxes. That means the bread is up, the unga is up, anything. These older people,
the economic times
so
have
the
changed
economy,
as well. Right.
it is hard times. These older persons are suffering. And you, like the other day on Sunday, I saw older persons in Eldoret lamenting about their crop. Yes, they have a crop. Actually, it's not the young people who are farmers. It is them. Now, they have the crop, the harvest is bumper, but they have nowhere to take it. Surely, our government, remember, these are the people who are voted in. These older persons, we even went for them in their houses to come and vote you. I'm talking to our parliament, I'm talking to our Senate, and we need these laws. Let us respect our older persons. I've even interviewed people who are former MPs and former senators, and they feel so bad now because they are old.
That they did not
do the right things.
Right.
Aging starts from the day you were born. We are all aging. She said very well, all of us in the next 20 years, everyone in this room will be an old person. So can we do the right things at the right time for the right people?
All right.
Yes.
And Carol, before we take a break, indeed, you know, that issue, especially on the issue of cash transfers and the responsibility by the government, needs to be highly relooked because, first of all, 2,000 shillings is very little money for, you know, an individual. And it's inconsistent. You can come at any time. So that's something that perhaps needs to be addressed.
Yes, absolutely. I think Lucy has articulated it very well.
Yeah.
But I'll add that the social protection is not a favor that the government is doing. Because the way the Inua Jamii program is presented, it's like we're doing you all a big favor. It is not a favor, it is a right. And therefore the government must up its game to make sure that the money comes on time. It's very little. Let it come on time. But it also needs to be increased because the cost of living is biting to all of us here. In fact, we're just chatting before we started that if you look at traffic now, there's hardly traffic because we can't afford fuel. So how is the older person expected to go afford the bus fare to go register in their county? Number two, how are they expected to survive between the periods? You know, like if it's supposed to be given on a monthly basis and there's a delay, what happens to the older person? So I think we're not being fair to the older people. And I think the government has the capacity, the machinery to be able to put in place a system that is effective, that is flowless, that is fluid, because we have, right now we have technology. What is it that prevents the government from unlocking this technology and ensuring that this money goes to the older people at the right time? And just to reiterate again, that this has to be continuous. every day. We're living in an aging world. It's not like aging now will stop. The registration stopped on 30th. So aging is on a pause until the next time that registration starts.
So it has to be a continuous
It has to be a continuous process.
Right.
And the administrators must also be trained on how to do this. So
and
that
this number is increasing, by
it's
the way,
increasing
because we have better healthcare systems, and that's why we're seeing the population of older persons
living longer.
also increase.
Yes. Yeah, so administrators must be trained so that when older people come to register, then they're treated in a certain way because of who they are. So let's actually pay attention to this. And going back to the policy, the need for frameworks that will govern that process in a way that we're able to then get accountability for it.
Indeed. All right, on that point, let's take a quick break here on AM Live NTV This Morning. We will be coming back shortly to continue with this conversation. The hashtag, as always, is MLive NTV. Talk to us, NTV Kenya at Zainab Ismail. All right, welcome back to the program. You are watching MLive as we converse around the issues of the rights of older persons in the country, the existing gaps and what can be addressed to look at those particular challenges. Here, a comment I was getting, and it says, money is not everything. You cannot buy company. And that's why you find many older people alone and dejected. This increases on, by the way, the issue of mental health, Monica.
Yes.
So you can imagine being extremely lonely. And yes, you might have all the money in the world, even in your old age, but you're not going to buy the company of anyone to come and stay with you.
Do you remember the lady from Vika? I think your TV covered that.
Correct.
The one who died in the house.
The one who
for
said about
9 months.
Correct.
For 9 months with the dogs and chicken.
Animals died.
And animals died, and she was in the compound by herself. She has a beautiful home. She was a serious businesswoman before. She has educated her children. Some of them are pilots. And all the kids have to say is that we've been sending her money, but for 9 months, no one checked at her gate. And one of the sons is believed to be living like 300 meters away from her. So what I suspected in such case, I thought maybe that lady developed a dementia, and then no one even knew she is sick. They think she's just rude, because even the neighbors say she never used to allow anyone there, and if the caregiver, I mean the maid is sent there, she refuses to open. That is a sign. That's already a sign of a problem. But did they know? Even Nyumba Kumis. That's why I'm also putting them in my program. The basic person who meets the older person in the villages need to be trained. We need to train them. The chiefs, the local people.
To be able to understand.
To be able to
The
understand.
community health workers.
Yeah, because the community health workers. And because when you see something like that, someone is not opening a gate, you have not seen her like 1, 2, 3 days coming out, there must be something. So those are some of the symptoms people should be looking for.
Okay.
And I think that's what happened in Thika.
Indeed.
Yes.
And Monica, indeed, as I was asking you as well, I mean, money cannot buy that company that you need. You need family, you need people who care for you, you need a social system where there is, you know, a level of dependency from your part as an older person to people who care for you, essentially.
Yes, we are social beings.
Yeah.
And it's right we keep the social lines open. And the older persons are ones who keep up the social, especially when they start developing or they have challenges in the continents. So they will not even go to church if they were going. They will not go to social places if they were going. They will not attend their grandchild's wedding or something. They will keep off from home. And that is just a sign. And yet then that starts pulling them to the loneliness. They start feeling low, eventually depression, and it can eventually become dementia. So we need to look out for the older persons, even in the churches, in the mosques, in the temples. What's going on with this old person?
So we become our neighbor's neighbor.
Neighbor's keeper.
Correct.
Neighbor's
Yes,
keeper.
and always aware of your environment.
Right.
Yeah, what are others doing? What are they saying? It can be verbal, it can be non-verbal. Someone could even decide, someone could shut down. They don't and maybe their mood goes down, they lack motivation, they withdraw, and they become weak, they have no appetite. So instead of thinking this is a problem, maybe you just ignore. And that's how they are ignored then.
Yeah.
You find someone as a daughter-in-law who lives in the same compound with them, but they don't care. You ask her, she's like, you know, this woman, she doesn't even want to eat. She doesn't want to come out of the house. She doesn't want. That is a symptom. That's a sign of something, a problem, and they need medical attention. And that's why we also advocate in those hospitals, we must have a section where older persons are given the opportunity. We've talked about this several times. Even the wards where they're admitted. How would you expect a 90-year-old person to share a bed with someone who is just a teenage? That's an insult. We should have designated places for care of the elderly. In matatus, in the Western world, if you enter a bus, the front part is for older persons and people living with disability. Parking, there should be designated parking for the older persons. Those are things we want in those laws. If they are not there, who cares? How are the young people going to know this is important?
Okay.
Yes.
And I mean, Carol, do you think that we live in a place where, or in a space where, if you're 70 years and above, you're written off, you're done. You cannot participate. People don't expect you to join in conversations that perhaps matter, policy decisions that would actually be important to you. Even in terms of work. Once you're retired, because we have already a cutoff in terms of retirement. All right, when you're retired, you go home. You are rendered obsolete. There's nothing more you can. Unfortunately, that's where we live. That's the reality of the situation.
Yeah, and I think it's a tragedy because for two reasons. One is that you have a resource. In your younger age, you're considered as being resourceful.
Right.
Does that resource die at the age of 49 or does it die at the age of 55 or whatever age? So it's a tragedy that we are striving for development and leaving a critical part of the society behind who would contribute to that development discourse. That's one. But the second thing also is that we are all living longer now. And the example of the senator that Lucy gave, I think that sticks. While you're young, you completely block your mind to these issues. And you're being told that they will catch up with you when you're older. So now that we know, we've seen it with our parents, we've seen it with those who've gone before us, we've seen it with the neighbors. Why are we not paying attention in our younger ages so that when we grow older, we are included, we have income, we have access to health care, we're able to take care of ourselves and contribute to society. I think that we have to think about it in that way. And also, retirement from working, as in employment, because that's where retirement happens.
Right.
If you're running a business, chances are that you will continue for a long time. But if you're retiring from employment, that doesn't mean that the skill, the resources, etc., do not matter. I recently read a story of an MP, I think it was a doctor or an MP in Uganda who ran a very robust business. I think it was probably a clinic. No, a business or whatever he did. And he retired, and a year later, he went to the office to see somebody. And there was a new receptionist who didn't recognize him. And he didn't want recognition, but he was now recounting his experience. And he had the receptionist speak on the phone. There's this old man sitting here who'd like to see you. So he waited in the reception. Then the person who was going to see came out to see him. Is someone who he had worked with there before, greeted him, and was very happy to see him. And as he went in, there were a few new people whose only reference to him was that old man. They were totally oblivious to the contribution he had made to this establishment. So that example shows us that the way we treat old age is that it's a very thin line. So that if my birthday is on 20th April, so that on 21st April of the year that I turn 60, I will be X'd from if I retire. I'll be totally, I'll be deleted. There'll be Control-Alt-Delete to my name. all this, even the things I'm saying today, will be of no relevance on 21st of April, 2028. You know, for me, that's a tragedy because the knowledge does not end.
Right.
Exactly.
On the day after I turn into the older age bracket.
Right.
Yeah, so we need to think about that. And going back to my earlier call, that we have to bring the younger generations to the fore, to the table, so that, because society is going to develop together. It's not a society for young people or a society for old people.
It's not
We're looking at a
segmented.
society for all ages, where we're able to tap into the resource that sits with the older people, the resource that sits with the younger people, probably some more energy that sits with the younger people, bring it together and move along and develop the country together.
Do you think we need perhaps then to also look at policies that would then encourage older persons perhaps to remain or re-enter the workforce if they wish to do so?
Yes, absolutely. Because I shudder to think that at the age of 60, someone will tell me to now go, probably give me a wheelbarrow if that was still happening, and send me back to the village. I still feel I've got so much to give. So, but I cannot give it in the same, with the same energy like Brian.
Because
here.
the system
Yeah.
doesn't allow you.
It doesn't allow me, but also I may not be able to give it in the same way. So allow me to step into a different function that still allows the younger person to come in and bring in their resource as well. And it doesn't have to be employment. There are many things that people who have, older people could do. It doesn't have to be formal employment.
Correct.
But I think there has to be a policy that allows older people to re-enter employment, but also to engage in gainful something that gives them income in a way that is beneficial, that is not tax heavy, that the system, the society enables them to also actualize themselves in that way.
Indeed.
Remember, Zainab, this person you are calling older person, and actually the right terminology is not elderly. It is older persons. Like she said, you could clock 60 today, and the other person is 59 and some days to 60. This one is younger person, and then you are elderly. No, it is older because you could be older by a day or a year.
Correct.
And remember, what I was trying to say is you cannot buy experience. Remember that whatever you are calling retirement age, the time, the hours you have accumulated in, self-development, becoming better in person, the work that you do here at NTV, you cannot be done by someone who just came from college with the theory today. But your experience actually is more than money. So these people, when someone just retires, that's just a set date. In the West, like in the US, it's even 70, 90 years you are working. It is the laws you can be. We can get our older person involved, especially now that we have the county governments. We can have them like in advisory teams. We know people who did education. We knew when you used to hear Alliance, these big schools. They just retired. Where are they? Why can't they contribute so we can have the same schools advising what made the schools work that time?
But I find this interesting.
Yeah.
So you say that, and I completely agree that, you know, we cannot phase out this generation, right?
Yeah.
This is a huge population. But have you ever had this conversation and this argument, and especially from younger people who say, now look, it is your time to go home.
Yeah.
It is time for us young people to take over. No, we cannot see you in, you know,
That is
consulting
discrimination.
and part of, you know, a committee, you know, departments or perhaps things like that, or in state offices, because look, we need you guys to go out so that the younger people who are facing high rates of unemployment also have space, you know, to take up these positions.
The older persons are not looking for employment. They are looking for involvement. Let them participate. Like we talk about our security all the times. Who would be a better person to address security more than someone who has been ex-police or ex-military? Here in the villages, you find the so-called Nyumba Kumi to check what is happening. And then these people have no knowledge of security.
Yeah.
But you have these other people in the village, just because someone retired does not mean they are tired. So let us get them involved, let them participate. It doesn't have to be full-time jobs, but advisory work. They can even work once a week, even twice a month, but at least they are doing something to contribute to bettering the country because of the experiences. The other day we had a PS Damo, who has been from DO, from what, until becoming the PS in this country. He was talking about how he retired, the day he retired, no one called his phone. He was deserted in the village. No one really, that's a frustration by itself because no one wants to involve him anymore. No one even thinks he knows anything anyway. So we need to get them involved. We need them to have them participate in the activities and especially in anything regarding their care. Let them talk about it. That is when we are doing these policies. Let us bring them on board. Let them say, what does someone with dementia need? Because they have gone through it. Those people who are doing it, let them be involved. We don't want people to sit on the boardroom again and tell us, here is the policy that you need. We need to involve the right people, especially the older people, the people working with the elderly, to give this because they have first-hand information.
Indeed. And Monica, as we wind up on the conversation, I mean, let me state some statistics here. According to the World Health Organization, so 2/3 of the world population over 60 years old will live in low and middle income countries by 2050. Kenya's aging population expected to double in the next 3 decades, with a 316% increase in people living with dementia by 2050. This is as reported by Strengthening Responses to Dementia in Developing Countries, Kenya. Moreover, dementia research has been predominantly focused on the global north societies, resulting in severe lack of scientific information about dementia in the global south, where we are as a country. So in terms of addressing even that challenge as well moving forward, what needs to be done in your winding remarks?
Yes, globally, there's a slogan we normally say when we're in those meetings. Every 3 seconds, someone is being diagnosed with dementia, and it's more so here in low-income countries like here. And there's a dementia policy that WHO enacted in 2017 to 2025. I'm glad to report WFD, that's me, I sit in the dementia policy draftman, we're drafting. It's good, as Lucy has said, they involve people who care for people with dementia. We are working together with the Ministry of Health. So we hope before 2025, this policy will be a reality. And therefore, it will be able to kill the stigma that dementia is an aging disease or somebody has been bewitched or all those things, those connotations that come with dementia. So yes, dementia is growing rapidly.
And we need the research, the scientific research, to be able to cater to the healthcare systems that we have to be able to address these challenges.
We have, I think there's ongoing research that has been going on in Aga Khan Hospital. And they're doing a fantastic job in terms of trying to do research. In fact, they're just laying the groundwork. We hope they will roll it out. And yeah, so there's that research that is in Kenya. So we are glad at least Kenya, where it sits, it's actually trying to work towards destigmatizing the dementia.
Correct, indeed. And Carol, as we also wind up on this conversation, we've talked about the issue of policy, where we are. We know where these existing gaps are and really what needs to be done. But usually there's a problem when it comes to implementation, even with the policies that we already have in place that, we should be enjoying and the elder population should be enjoying at this point. But what would be your calling, let me just say, what would be your key takeaway, and especially your advice to government officials and those who sit in the policy decision-making table in terms of trying to make sure that this population, this older persons group, is catered for, at least to the best that they can be able to?
I'll go back to what I said earlier, that laws on their own are not enough.
Yeah.
They have to be implemented. For implementation to happen, you need a couple of things. You need the political will, because you could have a law that then sits in the drawers of the relevant ministry. The ministry is not funded enough, it is not resourced enough, human resource and otherwise, to be able to take care of that problem that the law is trying to address. So there has to be the laws and the policies, but there has to be the finances to facilitate the implementation.
Okay.
And then there has to be the political will. But in addition to that, there has to be the societal psyche to be able to take advantage of that law. Because if that law exists and nobody pays attention to it, then it's of no consequence. So it has to be a play between all these factors for a law to be effective. The other reason is that laws are not implemented is because the issue is not given adequate priority. And we've spoken here a lot over the last hour and a half about the importance of including older people, lifting the voice and agency of older people, addressing the problems of ageism, addressing the problems of the poverty that bedevils older people because of the cultural and other societal norms that then push older people to the periphery. So I think my message to the government would be twofold. Number one, older people are not over. And right now, HelpAge International is running a campaign called #OlderNotOver. So the fact that you're older doesn't mean that that's it. So let us remember that older people have a role to play. They are bona fide members of the society. They are as important as the next person in the society. And if you're striving for development and you're blocking part of your population from engaging in the processes that will lead to development, then I think we're looking at development from a very warped perspective. So in reiterating our #OlderNotOver, the government must involve older people in development processes. The second call to the government is to, and to resource the implementation of those laws that then facilitate the actualization of the rights of older people. The second specific call is to Parliament and Senate, and that is to pass laws that then facilitate the protection of the rights of older people, no matter what we want to call it. It could be an Older People's Act, it could be a Geriatric Act, it could be a Gerontology Act, whatever we want to call it.
All right.
Let us pass a law that will facilitate the implementation of the rights of older people, which reflects the standards that are in the AU protocol that Kenya has ratified, the MIPA, the Madrid International Plan of Action on Aging, which Kenya has also signed on to, and all the other instruments that then Kenya has ratified, including the Maputo Protocol that talks on Article 22, the rights of elderly women.
All right.
And in addition, the final thing is that Kenya must also join the push for an a UN convention on the rights of older people. I think it is time.
Right.
In this 75th year of the Universal Declaration, it is a shame that 75 years on, in an aging world, we don't have a convention on the rights of older people.
All right. And Lucy, your final remarks.
Thank you so much again. My parting shot is to all stakeholders, faith-based organizations, religious institutions, judiciary, youth, parliament, senate, and our able government. This journey cannot be complete without all of us. We all need to be part of this because older persons are part of our societies. My voice, your voice, our voices are the voice of the voiceless. #OlderNotOver. And the hashtag for the Kenya Pro Aging is usually sote tuwajibike, tutunze wakongwe.
Indeed. Thank you so much. And I've captured a number of things. So we have to challenge the stereotypes and prejudices about old persons. We have to ensure that they have adequate health care, which of course is a fundamental right for all, including these individuals. And then there's the issue of the right to economic security and social protection, among many other things. Of course, we have to be able to take care of the older persons, because at some point, we're going to reach there. So we have to create a safe space for all of us. But thank you so much, ladies. Lucy Moria, CEO, founder of the Kenya Pro-Aging Organization, Monica Kinyanjui, founder, Women for Dementia Africa, and Carol Agengo, the Global Initiatives Lead and Regional Representative, Health Age International. Thank you so much for coming in this morning. We would love to continue with this conversation, and we'll continue trying to engage all the stakeholders to see how we can be able to make a shift and a change in terms of how the older persons are treated in this country, and of course trying to look at those existing gaps. But this is where we wind up on the conversation. Your World is coming up shortly with Winnie Lubembe. My name is Zainab Ismail. Have yourself a good morning, good day.
Thank you, Zainab.
Indeed.